Teachers, childcare providers, let us take a moment to review parts of the brain. The human brain is truly an amazing organ. It is something we're born with that is not fully developed. The cells are there, but the connections have got to be formed, and these connections are called synapses. Synapses are formed through experiences. So some have said our brains are like a new, fresh set of Legos. All the pieces are there, but they have to be put together. So we have different parts of our brain. The brain stem in our lower brain connects to the spinal cord. It's very small. It's in charge of our heart rate and our breathing, all these involuntary functions necessary for survival, even things like sneezing, tear and saliva production, swallowing, coughing, vomiting, sensing temperature, pain, pressure, touch. All of those things are very basic from our earliest days. And our brainstem also helps us with our sleep and our motor and nerve supply to our face and our neck, including our eyes and our mouth. Very helpful for our reading. Another part of the lower brain is our cerebellum, which helps us regulate our balance and posture, our limb movements, our equilibrium, our coordination, and we're moving into more voluntary movements of our larger limbs. And you can see this working with young children, how with lots of practice, our movements go from maybe more spastic and jerky to more smooth and fluid with much more control. The cerebellum's very busy with this, and it takes a lot of trial and error to learn to roll a ball, swing on a swing, ride a bike, hit a baseball. Things can get just more and more sophisticated throughout childhood. So let's talk about the four lobes of the brain. These are on both sides of the brain, and each part has a special role that they do. They also work together. It takes multiple lobes of the brain to pull off a single function. So the occipital lobe interprets information from our eyes. It turns it into the world as we see it and as we know it. So we have our binocular vision, our two eyes. They let in two pictures. Our retinas connect back here in our occipital lobe. Two images are combined into one image. It helps us with our distance and location, depth perception, color and shape determination, object recognition, and especially facial recognition. So the occipital lobe is very busy when reading a book about looking at beautiful picture books as a young child. The temporal lobe helps us a lot with our ears, our hearing, sense of hearing. It creates and preserves our conscious and long-term memories as we are processing sound and vision. It also helps us with recognizing faces and objects and language. So our temporal lobe receives sensations from the auditory nerve. It helps to interpret what's there and gives them meaning, and from just beyond sensation to some meaning to it, and also from the eyes too, of helping to interpret what this thing is. So if it's in a book, it's really exciting to go from point to the ball to the child at some point being able to say, this is the ball, this is the red ball. It just is pretty amazing to see those levels of sophistication growing as the child grows. Parietal lobe helps us with hearing, vision, memory, especially our shorter term memory. It helps us process touch, pain, temperature, and a sense of position of our arms and legs. Very important in childcare is figuring out where my hands and arms are in relation to my neighbor. Parietal lobe processes sensory information, such as what's given to us through our skin and our skin nerves. It connects our other lobes to help us interpret things. Because the parietal lobe is helping us judge a size of something, shape of something, distance. And to be able to keep making new updates on where I am in time and space, especially related to my neighbor and friend, where I am on the swing, where I am on the slide. Because as we move and have motion, we're changing where we are and how close or far we are to things. The parietal lobe is really important with interpreting symbols, written language, spoken language, math, codes, puzzles, and in an increasingly digital age, icons and logos. And then our frontal lobe is what's called the control panel, our personality and our ability to communicate, our emotional expression and regulation, and reading the expression and emotions of other people are all happening up here in the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe helps us with problem solving, our memory, decision making, language and speech, judgment, especially assessing risk and danger, reasoning, sequencing, the conscious movement of our muscles and making good choices about that, our attentiveness, our working memory, our ability to concentrate, organize, and comprehend. Our frontal lobe helps us with mood stability. Of course, in childcare, you know that helps with sleep, eating, thirst, our exercise, and our hormones all impact our mood stability. But the frontal lobe gets lots of good help if we have enough water to drink and good food to eat. So all these things, impulse control, our social skills, being flexible, being adaptable. This takes a long time to develop. So it gets us all the way through adolescence for the frontal lobe to make its way into a more fully formed part of our brain. And I know for sure I was a much more developed person at 25 than I was at 15. So it takes us a long time to develop this part. And reading is just such a critical way to help promote all these parts of the brains growing and thriving. So I like to think about our brain, parts of our brain as like rowing well together. That's our goal. So I was talking about the four lobes of the brain, and I thought, okay, so here's this picture of four people rowing, and our lobes have two sides on both sides of our heads. So one rower with two oars would be like a lobe that's working well together on both sides of the brain. The whole brain working well together would be like the whole rowing team can be coordinated and smooth. They're not knocking into one another's oars. They're not turning the boat over. They're not going around in a circle, in a circle, in a circle. They're actually able to go forward somewhere. And so all of those functions of the brain working together is pretty miraculous and amazing. And it's so exciting how reading helps us develop that in young children.